Hello and welcome back to another episode of Let's Build an E-commerce Store with a Spring Boot backend. This is a episode, or one of the multi-part of episodes, of the Websockets, where we're actually implementing it onto our onto our application. If this is not the episode, I think it's 19. Yeah. If this is not episode 19, be sure to go back to 19 and watch from there onwards. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in between, because this is a continuation of episodes. And I've just recorded the same intro for all of these because it's a bit quicker. So thank you very much for watching, and let's get straight into it. Right, back in our development environment for part 5 of the WebSocket bits and pieces. So in the Git repository, which I'm going to upload after this one, because this is our final bit of coding before we get to test it. Bear in mind that we've got to do JUnits after this, but this is the final bit of code that we get to do before our actual testing of the WebSocket stuff. I will upload in the Git repository for you to be able to download. You'll notice there's a new folder called Tools, and inside that is a WebSocket tool. We've got an index and an app.js, index.html and an app.js file. And if you open this up, you can see it's basically our kind of harness for testing the WebSockets, where it happens to actually build an entire UI front end. This is kind of half stolen from the Spring docs. I mean, if you Google for like Spring WebSocket, I think it's something like that, Spring WebSocket. Oh. Is it not going to load? Spring boot WebSocket. Doesn't seem to want to load. But basically, on one of the Spring docs pages, one of the the ones that show you how to implement things, the one for WebSocket does actually have this more or less, but I've added more to it, specifically and it's specifically more designed to work with our application. So it also kind of gives you an idea for if you want to go off and make your own web front end. Well, this is obviously, going to give you some code to kind of point you in the right direction. Again, I'm not a great web developer, so I don't recommend using my code one for one. But yeah, so this is what we're going to use later on in the episode. So first, though, we've got to do some little housekeeping bits to get us ready for testing. So the first thing we're going to do in this one is we need to update our web security config. Now you might be wondering, well, web security configs for REST API, why do I need to update this? Well, funny thing that, because like I said before, the WebSocket stuff, although it is WebSocket, primarily uses HTTP as its initial communication point. And all the communication goes over HTTP, I should add, actually. So because that's over HTTP, you actually need to allow certain HTTP endpoints to be accessed without any authorization, because otherwise it will block the WebSocket from working. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another one here. Alright, now this is what I had to do to get it working, which is a bit weird, but we've got to do /WebSocket, so that's the initial endpoint that you connect to, but then you've also got to add /WebSocket // and the reason why is because the WebSocket communication, the technology, what it does is it actually creates a bunch of kind of endpoints under WebSocket / and then blah 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 blah, and it does these things to keep the connection alive and to keep talking to each other and all that sort of stuff. So you do actually need to give both of these permit all access. And then the next thing we need to do is in our user controller, we actually need something to test, right? So what we want to test is the ability to actually ping these message updates around. So let's add a new Spring thing that's auto wired for us, and what that is called the simp messaging template. Simp messaging template. We'll add that to the constructor. Now, what does the simp messaging template do? This is similar to if you have looked at Hibernate. You've got Hibernate templating, and you've got there's other bits and pieces about templating you can do with Spring, and it's essentially kind of the same thing. A lot of like where you've got Spring that's automated using annotations and all that. Well, not all the time do you want to use annotations. Sometimes you want to do dynamically typed, or not dynamically typed, but dynamically assigned things. So the SIP message template is basically a way for you to send messages around over the WebSocket stuff. It allows you to send them around programmatically as opposed to using annotations, which is what personally I prefer to do a lot of the time. So we need to have a think about what we're doing here. So first things first, of what we can identify is in this user controller we have a method which I mistakenly forgot to remove. So we have this user has permission, and you'll notice that it's doing the exact same thing that the user service now does from our last episode. What we want to do is actually migrate it to use this one. So what I wasn't intended to actually do when I did this pre-code bit was to refactor this and pull it out and move it to a different method. Instead, what I did was actually just dump it straight in here and add a new one elsewhere. So we're going to remove this just before copying the Java doc out, so I don't have to rewrite it later. And I'm just going to drop that in there. And then inside our user controller, we're going to jump to the top and then go private user service, and we're going to do that with a constructor as well, and that will allow us to get the user service from Spring, and then we can do user service dot user has permission to user, and then if we just copy this and we can paste it in for all of the other ones as well. So that's just our little bit of refactoring that I missed from the last episode. So now we're talking about submitting the changes. Well, where does the address... So let's focus on addresses for the example. So where does addresses change? Well, the address changes here where we patch it, and the address also changes here when we add a new one. Okay, so we want to push that. Now, we've got two different things happening here. We've got an insert and an update. Well, I don't want to send an insert and an update to the front end without labeling it. So how do I do that? Well, what we can do is we can actually create a new data type under model in our API area, and we're going to create a new class, and it's going to be called data change, and this is going to have a dynamic type T with it, and we're going to do private chain, we won't do that just yet, private T data, and then we're going to create a public enum called change type, and we're going to have insert, update, and delete, and obviously we're going to only use these two at first, but we might add that in later in the date. We're going to do private change type. Oh, so actually we'll just call it change type, so it's a bit more descriptive. And then we can just simply add ourselves a public data change. We need a no-rs constructor for Spring. Now we also want a data change constructor that takes in the change type and also T for the data. And we do this dot change type equals change type, this dot data equals data, and then we want to add getters for both of those two. And we'll also add a setter for the data while we're at it. Right, so there we go. We've built that up. That's our little data change class. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back to our user service. Not user service, sorry. We're going to go to the user controller. That's the right name for it. And then where we have puts mapping, we're going to come in here and we do this. We do address do.save address. Well, we actually want to cut this out and just do address and then saved address equals that, and then saved address is in the OK. So now we've restored the existing functionality. It now does the exact same thing as before, but now we have a variable called saved address that we can actually use. So we now want to do messaging template dot convert and send. The to user bit we're going to talk about later down the line when we start doing the order stuff, actually putting through orders. We're going to do the to user stuff because that's one-way channel communication between the back end and the client, whereas this is across everyone. So for the sender, we want to do a destination of payload. So our destination is /topic/user/ and then add the user ID in there, and then /address, and then the object is a new data change instance with data we're just gonna import that, and then it's gonna make it easier for us to go change type dot insert and then the address. Okay, so what's happening is we're saving the address of the database. If it's saved successfully, we convert our new data object here and send it to this destination, and that data object is an insert type with the address. Okay, and we're going to copy this. Sorry, we'll copy the last 3 lines, and we're going to do the same sort of thing here. Just make sure that it's still the same thing. Yeah. So you can see here, but instead we're going to do update. Okay, so there we go. We've added our bits here to be able to actually convert and send that information across. I'm now just going to whiz through my notes here and make sure I've not missed anything else before we go test. Nope, we've all done that bit. Yep. Okay, so now we should be in a position to test. Now, bear with me, we've changed a lot. I'm hoping this works first time. If it doesn't, I might have to pause the recording and come back to it. So we want to start our application up. And here we go, writing classes, starting up. And as you can see here, application starting. That's an error message because of the SMTP. I haven't got the dev server started up, but that's fine. Right, so now let's open up Postman. And in the last series, set of episodes where we created these put bits for the address, we've got this here. Our authorization token here is going to be expired, and this is for which user? User 8. I'm just going to quickly do a login here and get the new token out so that we can update that and then send. There we go. Right, so I've done the put call here to add an address, and you can see here it's sent and it's been okay and it's come back and we're all good to go. Okay, and there's no errors in the console apart from that one from previous. So now what we want to do is we want to connect to the WebSocket and confirm that we're getting that through as well. So we're going to use our same authorization token that we just had there, and we're going to come here and we're going to drop that into there. Now this is the host that the Spring Boot is running on, so it should be the exact same as this here. But I've put WebSocket after the fact there, and our topic is going to be /topic/user/8/address, and then if we hit connect, we get an error message. So if we go into inspect, I like to just move this down to the bottom. We're going to the console. It might give us some more information, so you can see we've got subscribe here, connect, connected, subscribe, and then this is where I was testing with this topic stuff. Let me just quickly update that. I was testing with some other stuff. Tools. Sorry, this is very unprofessional of me doing this on the fly. Where is it? DM, remove that one. I think we should be able to just copy this, refresh /topic/user/8. obviously you won't have this problem because you'll already have the correct version. So here we go. So what's the error this time? So we've got topic user 8 address. Command error. What does this have inside here? Right. As predicted, there is obviously something going astray here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording here. I'm going to figure out all the bugs because the WebSockets, there's so much to it. I mean, I'm really hoping that when you guys are following the tutorial, you don't have problems because there is so many problems that can arise with WebSockets in Spring. But I'm going to stop the video recording here, walk away, figure out all these problems, and I'll come back. I'll describe to you what the problems were, how to fix them, and then we'll move forward from there. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hello, right, back after trying to fix this and find out what's going wrong. So what it actually ended up being is that my understanding was incorrect. So where we have in our WebSocket configuration class, we have the pre-send method for... Oh no, not this one, sorry. No, it's the JWT request filter. So in our request filter, where we've got our pre-send, I originally had a bit here that basically said if the message type is a connect. Yeah, so this originally was if the message type is connect, was what it was saying before, and it would then do the process. But however, the connect message type, I don't either. It either doesn't pass the native headers or it just doesn't want to pass it. I'm not quite sure. But what I've found out is that actually we want to do it on a subscription level. So a user can connect to the endpoint. There's no restriction because obviously that's not a problem because they may want to subscribe to topics that are not user-based, maybe product-based. And then once they subscribe to things, then we need to kind of go, right, do you have a authorization a token? Is it a valid token, etc., etc. So what we're doing is this is the new method. So what we do is we go, is the message type a subscribe? Then we get the native headers out. Then we get the list from the authorization native header. They get the first one out of that list if it's not null because that's our auth token, and then we're going to check that token. And that will do what we did prior to this anyway. And then after that, it returns the message. So that's how we handle our authentication. So now that I've got that, I've restarted my application. And if we come back to my little test screen here, I'm going to drop our authentication code in. I'm going to put the topic back to /topic/user/ the ID of the user we're changing /address, which is 8 for me. Hit connect. And as you can see, we've connected with no error. What we can do is we can right click and go to inspect and then look at the console. You can see that we've got our messages here saying that we've connected. We did the connect message, which sends that token. So I'm not quite sure why it doesn't work, but hey ho. Then we get the connected response from the server. Then that's just an output from the file, and then we post this thing saying subscribe and to the server. And now if we go into our postman here and we're going to put in a new address for that user 8, and just hit send on that, get status 200. We return to the new record, which is ID 8. If we come in here, you can see we've got a message replied, its destination, the content type, the content, and you can see we've got change type insert, data, ID 8, address line, blah 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 blah. These are all bits and pieces we did, and also the script outputs the data as well that I've done there. So there we go. In messages, we can see we've got an in message for insert with our address line. Something else we need to test is our message blocking, because remember we did a filter, or a not a filter. What do they call it? An interrupt. or no, interceptor. That's it. We did our interceptor, didn't we, before this one? Reject client messages on channel interceptor. So if we do test here and send that, oops, there we go. What's going on here? Hold up. So, so you can see we tried to send that information, we sent, and then there was an error. I'm not sure why, because it should just set the message as null. Where are we? If it's topic user. That's strange. Let's try connect again and try it again. No, it worked that time. Oh, it's the second time we send it. Well, this is strange, isn't it? Right, okay. I'll look into that and we'll fix it the next episode. But yeah, so you can see that you're not getting another in back. So if we try and change this topic to user test like this and hit connect, what is it not liking about that now? Looks like we're having some sort of problems with this. Right, okay, I'm going to pause the video again. I'll look and figure out what's going on here. This wasn't happening yesterday when I tried this. So I'll be back in a minute. Right, and we're back. Okay, so I figured it out in the end. So if we now do /topic/test, you can see if we connect, we're connected. We can hit test in here and send it, and you can see we're getting out of us saying test because that's logged locally. Then we get an in of us saying test because that's what's sent to the server, and the server sends it back as well because we're already subscribed to that topic. And then as we can see, if we go to topic user 8 address, disconnect and connect onto that topic, and then we try and send test, you can see we get the out, but nothing else. I can keep sending that. It's not going to error this time. So what did I do to fix this? Well, there's two things that we've missed here. So coming back to our JWT request filter, as we said before, we don't want to do it on the connect simp message type. We have to do it on subscribe. I now figured out why that is. It's because for some reason the Spring security context does not get transferred between the WebSocket messages. Now, I couldn't find a way of doing this. I may be wrong. There probably is a better way of doing it, but I couldn't find a way to pass the authorization object or the principal across all of the different messages. So what that means fundamentally is that every time the client sends a message, it has to have the authorization header in the message header, like native headers. So as you can see here, what we've got is subscribe and message, because what we were doing, we were sending a message without an authorization. Well, it wasn't getting taken out of the authorization out of the message, and therefore when the message was being processed, well, we had no authentication to make sure that the person was or wasn't allowed to do that. So it's a bit strange, but it's the way that these things work sometimes. And like I said, if there's a better way of doing it, please feel free to comment, because I was racking my brain. I couldn't find anything online that does this. So yeah, basically any simp message types that you want to process with authentication, or that will require authentication, you're going to need to drop in here as well. For now, I've already got subscribe and message because those are the only things that are being authenticated. But yeah, so there we go. So that's what that fixed that. And then the other thing was when we tried to subscribe to something that wasn't /user/topic, sorry, /topic/user, the ID and the thing. It's because in here, what we were doing was just doing this matcher.extract_URI template variables with this string here. Now, this method, it doesn't check that the string matches beforehand for you. So what it does is it throws an exception, and this is just a illegal states exception as well. So it's not something you really want to be catching either. So what I've done is I've taken the string out and put it into its own string, the user topic matcher, and then we say matcher.match user topic matcher destination. That basically checks, does the destination match this? So if it does, then we want to do our extract URI template variables from the matcher from the destination, and then we could do the work. So it's just wrapped all of this block of code with this if statement. And there we go. So that's the end of setting up our first WebSockets to run on the Spring Boot. Like I said, WebSockets are very complex, and I struggle myself sometimes even trying to wrap my head around some of the ways that it's implemented, some ways to actually use it. So thank you for struggling along with me, let's say. Like always, please feel free to like and subscribe. Feel free to comment. Any feedback not only helps me, but helps other people as well. If it's some sort of helpful code snippet or a better way of doing something, please feel free. If anyone wants to come forward with ideas of how to do something slightly better, I'm more than happy to do another episode later down where we refine or refactor elements that we've done already, just doing them better with better concepts. Because I am only one developer. There are hundreds and thousands of developers around the world, and everyone has their own way of doing something, and not everyone has the perfect way of doing it, and maybe sometimes there's not a perfect way of doing it, but when you work together as a team, you build up better things. So feedback is crucial. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.